Hello, dear honors scholars. I'm here to provide you with a few tips about the upcoming honors thesis poster session. I'll talk a little bit about poster construction and then about what you can expect when it comes to the dialogue on the day of the poster session itself. So I wanted to remind you that the Honors Handbook has a great list of all the required components that should be on your poster. I will just remind you, this of course includes title, your affiliated departments, whether or not you've received funding. So you might have the logo of a funding agency on your poster. Of course, include the logo for the honors program. I urge you to include the logos for your home department or departments. Don't forget that if you have had institutional review board certification, as in you've gone through the process because you're using human subjects as part of your research, that you will have a number that identifies your approval. It's good to include and expected that you include that IRB approval number on your poster as well. Of course, the poster should have your name and your advisor's name as well. And again, this list can be found in the Honors Handbook. In terms of the required components of the poster, again, think about how you will lay all this out as you design your poster, but you absolutely have to have an abstract summary of the project. This can be the 100-word abstract that you already submitted to the honors program. You then also need to have a section that lays out your methodology, that summarizes your results, the data you've collected, and that draws conclusions from the research that you've conducted. And lastly, there should be a bibliographic section. And again, it will vary. It's possible that you can include all of your additional secondary materials in that bibliography, but give your reader of the poster a good sense of the key studies that have informed your own work and that you might be building upon, so that they understand the larger framework of the project that you have conducted. So those are required elements. You need to be thinking about how you present them in a way, again, that can be readable, accessible. You are an important interpreter of your poster, but you also want the poster to make sense for people who might just be coming by to read it. So really the poster is an elaborate abstracted form of your research to date. And don't fret if your project isn't completed by the time of the poster session. Honors Council members recognize that the poster session is a report of progress to date. They want to know you've collected some data, that you've begun to analyze it, of course, depending on your field. But they understand that the project may not yet be complete. And you want to present the information on the board in a way that tells the story correctly and accurately of the research conducted so far, that places it in the larger context of your field of study as well, so that the sense of what your contribution is to your field can be made evident. So remember, and again, the handbook tells you this, to prepare your poster usually it's a good idea to use PowerPoint, where you can set the margins to 30 by 40 inches, which is the correct size of the poster for the honors thesis poster session. And then think carefully about layout. Again, in the West, we read from left to right. And so it makes sense to construct the poster in a way that follows that flow. Be careful about how you present information so that it remains readable, that information doesn't get too crowded, and that you carefully label graphs and different sorts of data presentation, again, so that a reader, a guest can follow along. The handbook provides tips on how big your font size can be, because when you set the margins for your PowerPoint slide that becomes the poster at 30 by 40 inches, it is a little bit hard to tell what font is too small, what font is too big. And so I've got a list of point font sizes that are pretty typical for title, for subtitles, for body content. And then I would say the smallest font that's readable on a poster is usually about 16-point font. So use that as your guide. Keep the poster looking professional, easily readable, having, again, a sense of your personality as a researcher. So then when it comes to balancing text, images, and so forth. Follow the dictates of your field. Our honors website has a great many sample posters across the disciplines. Ms. Maxine Umania has done a lot of work gaining permission from our former students to provide examples. So there are really good examples for you to look at, posters in your field or sibling or closely affiliated fields, so that you can get a sense of how information is presented in an accessible way in your discipline. Be sure information isn't overcrowded, that you're choosing a color scheme, again, that makes the information accessible. And think about the poster as, yes, as I've already said, an accurate abstract of your research questions, your goals, your methods that you're using, and the results that you're finding. But then think about the poster as a guide to your speaking. You want on the poster data you can point to, quotations or evidence that you want to show if you're doing an analytical project, an image if you're analyzing or working with the visual arts or performing arts and so forth. You want material on the board that you can point to, that you can use as support for what you're explaining. So again, think about what needs to be on that board that helps me really clarify what it is I've been doing in my individual research project. And of course, as always, proofread the poster so carefully. Have your mentor do so, have a friend do so, because when things get printed at 40-point font, the pain of seeing a typo is extreme. So do your best to proofread. I know that accidents happen, but do watch out. So you'll remember that then you craft the poster using, again, a program I think is one of the easiest to use is PowerPoint, and then save it as a PDF and then get it printed on one of the large scale printers on campus. Some departments have large scale printers, I believe engineering, biology, certainly architecture does. But for the rest of us who don't have a large scale printer in our home departments, we can print through the James White Library, and the Honors Handbook has the email address to use to submit to the Media Center your PDF poster for printing. There is a modest fee. I believe you have to pay via your student account, I believe, but there's a modest fee to do that when you go to print the poster at the library. Give them a big enough window. I'm suggesting that the Monday before the poster session, which is always on Friday, please have submitted that poster. I do not want us, there are usually between 25 and 30 honors thesis poster presenters. And so we don't want all those posters flooding the James White Library on the Wednesday or Thursday before poster session. So please aim to have that poster design finished, reviewed by your mentor, and submitted for printing by the Monday before our poster session. And then by the Wednesday, I would ask that you would bring that printed poster by the honors office. Ms. Maxine has our foam core boards that the posters get clipped to, and we'd like you to come by the office and get your poster rolled out, clipped to the board so that it's absolutely ready to go for the poster session that week on Friday. Keep in mind when you're planning the Friday of honors thesis poster session that we'd like you to be ready 1.5 hours ahead. And so our event starts at 1:30 on Friday afternoon of the poster symposium. And we would like you to be to Buller Hall by 1 o'clock. We usually take a photo of you with your poster. And then we also take a group photo. We have a word of prayer. We go over final instructions. And we want to know that everyone is in place and ready to go for the actual poster session itself. So again, come half an hour ahead. That's 1 o'clock on the day of the poster symposium. A reminder that I know disciplines have very different dress codes. So for example, field biologists have a different dress code, professional dress code than we do as I do as a Shakespeare scholar. And this is normal, and I understand and respect that. But in the case of our poster symposium, where we are a group of interdisciplinary scholars coming together together. It's good if we adhere to a nice professional dress code so that we're communicating, we're taking this event seriously, it matters to us, and it's really part of how you're presenting yourself as someone reputable, to be trusted, and so on. So please aim for professional attire, dress, slacks, suiting, and so forth, to communicate that you're a professional in your field that we should be listening to. A reminder, please don't chew gum while you're talking. Again, it detracts from you as a young professional in your field. Remember that you need to convey confidence, delight in your topic, and a pleasure in communicating it to other people. And I absolutely recognize that we have different set points of enthusiasm and different kind of natural volumes for our voices, but you do want to speak with confidence, maybe a little more enthusiasm than you might ordinarily if you're a quiet person. You absolutely want to use your voice, your winning ways, to engage people in your research. And again, remember that board is going to be a guide, that poster board, to the discussion you have with your evaluators and the guests who come to the board. You want to be ready to point out important data, important results, conclusions, areas of continued research, what you still need to finish as you come closer to completing the project. So please plan that you're rehearsing a talk. With a poster session, you actually have to imagine several different kinds of talks. You have the shorter elevator speech that's really your project in a nutshell. And an elevator speech is usually quite short, but we'll say that's maybe a 2 to 5 minute talk at the most. But then you should also be prepared. Typically, Honors Council members who are evaluating the posters, they will spend about 10 to 15 minutes with you at your poster. So you have that short version, but then you should be ready to go deeper and take another 5 minutes or so to explain the data, to do some analysis of the data. So a listener will understand exactly what your methods were, why they were the right methods, how they were suited to your research questions. So you really do have to have a certain level of flexibility in your preparation for the talk. And again, I can't stress enough, please rehearse on your own first, then with your mentor, with a friend, so that you can practice a short version, a longer version, because you never want to seem like you've run out of words or ideas or explorations that you've done in the research. So have different versions of the talk ready and practice them, and then have your mentor, have your friends anticipate questions that are provoked by your short talk or your longer talk. Now, when it comes to the day of the poster session, be ready to read your audience. Be attentive to their level of interest, to whether it looks like they want to interrupt you and ask questions. I usually am an interrupter. So when I go around and grade, I listen for a little bit, but then I have questions and I kind of insert them. And I have other colleagues who do that. Some will be a little bit quieter and just listen to you speak for a longer period of time. But you've got to be flexible and ready for those different modes from your interlocutor, from your grader, or from your guests at the board. And again, know your talk so well. The short version, the slightly longer one, know it so well that it's not flummoxing or troubling when someone interrupts you in some way. And again, I want to stress, it's so important to read your audience, to think about, oh, do they need me to pause and do they want to ask a question? Ask them, do you have a question? But definitely aim to engage them. And so just a reminder that grading at the Poster Symposium happens by means of the Honors Council members. And so we aim to have every poster graded by 2 members of Honors Council. Our goal is always to have at least one of those 2 graders who is in a field closer to yours. We cannot always guarantee, because of the makeup of Honors Council, we cannot always guarantee that you will have a grader from your field, but the goal is to have someone in a sibling discipline who might use some of the same methods, who is familiar with the way in which you approach research in your particular field. And then most assuredly, the second grader will be someone from another discipline, because of, as you know, we value so much in honors interdisciplinary exchange. This is not a talk that's simply for people who speak your same language, your same disciplinary language. This is a talk you're preparing for smart people who aren't experts in your field. And so this is part of what you're being graded on. How well can you do specialty and disciplinary specific research, and then convey it not only to experts in your field, but to scholars in other disciplines. So again, be thinking about what terms in your project need to be explained, what definitions need to be unpacked, so that your listener can follow along and really benefit from the research that you've done. Don't forget that Honors Council members who grade you will also have a copy of the note that you received from me when you defended your honors thesis proposal. And so they will have on there the suggestions that council members gave you, the queries they had, the requests they had for changes or strengthening or improvement. And so you can expect that a grader may ask you, how did you address this concern of Honors Council? So be certain that you pulled up that approval email from the past that had that list of commendations and recommendations, so that you can anticipate maybe how you might address one of those earlier concerns as well. So the grading criteria, the grading card for the poster session is also in the Honors Handbook, but I'll remind you of the categories here. Of course, there's a section on research quality. Again, this is addressing how well and clearly you've presented your goals, your questions, your research methods, a hypothesis, if that's appropriate to your field, and that you are in the midst of gathering substantial data and results. There's a section that looks at poster content. Again, how well have all the component parts been presented on the poster? Are they presented in a way that is accessible, clear, professional? In addition, they will be looking at your verbal performance. These things we've been thinking about, where you rehearse your talk, that you show that flexibility, that delight in question and answer, and then they give a holistic grade. So again, the categories: research quality, poster content, poster appearance, verbal performance, and holistic impression. And you have two graders that will come over the course of the poster session time. In addition, you'll have students from Honors 398 who are visiting, as well as guests from a variety of departments. Please invite your friends to come by and see your poster, and really see this as a wonderful opportunity, maybe a first time that you've publicly presented the progress of your research thus far. It's a joy to see what everyone else has done. There's usually time so that after it's pretty clear you've had your two graders come by your poster, that maybe you can, on occasion, if you're not busy, go see what other friends are doing. It's a real joy, as I've said, to learn from one another. So friends, thank you for your excellent preparation for the Honors Thesis Poster session. And I look forward to hearing what you've been up to in your research. Take good care.